Okay, we're back for our side project about hopefully getting to this thing, but this is technically not part of the series for making this work. It's actually just about talking about resistors and resistance. So previously on my cut short video, I think it was my cut short video because I ran out of space on my camera. It says I've got at least 30 minutes at the moment, so we should be going fine. I just going to adjust the settings on the camera, so it's probably going to look terrible. But I did clean the little smudge that was on the lens, so hopefully that looks good. We're going to keep that. And I've got this thing here, maybe that makes it focus better. I turned off the quick focusing. But anyway, we'll turn it back on. You'll actually find that the light is a blue colour. It's an ultraviolet. So we should probably change that back to a better colour. Except having a talk about LEDs, I've gone and lost all my LEDs. Hold on, where's the little box of things? I don't know where anything is. We may have to just deal with that LED. Seriously? Yeah, I am organised. Maybe I should just restart. No, there was seriously like a little bag of LEDs right here. Okay, so I think these are all the same as this one. So that's not much use at all. Okay, I'm just going to steal one off this thing. So this one's got a red LED. Everyone likes red LEDs, so we are going to take that one out because I kind of worry, you know, when you're using the ultraviolet ones. Isn't ultraviolet bad? Is it really ultraviolet? And anyway, we're red. Okay, and we're going to take this thing off. So this was our variable resistance tool. So I'm going to take that off for a second, and we're just going to put back maybe we should zoom in a bit. Hopefully it actually changes. So here we go. We can keep that little wire in for now. So back to the circuit that we've been doing thousands and thousands of times. Battery, resistor, through the LED, and comes off here. So the whole point of this is a little bit about resistance and about what resistor I've chosen. So this resistor here, so let's just quickly do this. Oh, I can't do it because I've gone and lost the little box. Oh, this is not working out well at all. It's working out terribly. Where would I have put it? Like, oh gosh. Oh well. I still can't quite remember all the colours off the top of my head. So the one thing is that I have some synesthesia. It's not like a condition, it's right there, for goodness sakes. It's right, everything's right in front of me. And so when I think of numbers in my head, I automatically associate certain colours with them, and I can't help that. So if I think of a phone number, it's colorized in my head, and each number has a particular colour. And so the problem with these things, right, is that this is a useful little thing. It just tells you what each colour means, so that you can kind of work out the resistance by looking at the resistor. So there's the resistor. That's not going to come out very well, but it's got on one end brown, and then it's got an orange and a yellow and two black. So I don't think that's a very good resistor to use. I think this one here, I'm pretty sure this is a 330 ohm, and it's bigger, so we'll stick with that one. That's a reasonable brightness. And this one's a slightly larger one, so hopefully, come on. Oh, that's right, I can't focus. I have to press. Does it do it when I do that? I think apparently now I can change the focus, sorry. Not the time to be experimenting with the camera. Alright, as long as everything's out of focus. So it's orange, orange, black, black, and brown. And so orange here, which is not the same colour that I see when I think of a 3. So this is why it's kind of like, well, 4 is definitely, like 4 is yellow for me. You know, I guess it's just Thunderbirds and a whole bunch of other things that 4 just comes up yellow. So I'm fine with 4, and I can remember what 4 is, but I can't always remember. Actually, I can't remember the orange. Orange is like Thunderbird 3 as well. So they match up there. So that's 3, 3, and then there's a black, which is O. which is cool with me. I think 9 in my head is black, and O is kind of like invisible, but I can deal with black being 0. So that's 330. If you read it off, hopefully that was like a 3. 330. That's the worst. Okay, 330. And then there's another band, so there's 4 bands on these ones. Some of them have 3 bands. There's actually 5 bands, sorry. But the last band is not the specific value of the resistance. It's the tolerance. So just basically saying, just roughly how good are these resistors, how much do you expect the actual value to differ. And we'll test it in a second with the multimeter. So we've got 3, so the first 3 are basically a number that you just read off, 3, 3, and then the last one is the multiplier. So in this case we're going to multiply it by 10 to the power of 0, because there's nothing to do. It's basically how many zeros you're going to add on the end, and this is 0, which is 1. It's a bad way of doing it. No one's going to think of that. 3, 3, 0 plus 0 zeros, because there's only a black there, so there's no more zeros, and we get that. So but if it happened to be a brown one is the very last one, then you'd have to add, because you can't see this, but brown means 1, so you'd have to add another 0 onto it. And if it was a red, you'd have to add 2 zeros onto it, so because the red is 2, so that one's go there. 2 is also fine with me, though it's not the number I see in my head. I actually see a bluey colour, a bit more like that when I think of 2. So really it's a bit of a shame that these numbers don't match up, because then I would have been able to do this real easy. So what are we up to? So we know this is a 330 ohm resistor. We'll go through and read some other resistors at a later point. And we know what Ohm's law. So I think we're going to talk about Ohm's law from beforehand. So Ohm's law, I remember it as V equals IR, because that's just an easy thing, ver. And then I'm just going to quickly, and then using algebra, you can go V equals, so V over R equals I. So by dividing by R, I put the R down the bottom, and I take the R from the side, and then I had to put an R over there. So I've just shifted the R over there. So that's basic algebra. So now I've got that. So now I can work out current, given that I know what V and R is. And I can do the same kind of thing by putting V over I equals R. So in that case, from there I took I and I just divided V by I, and that got rid of that I on that side. So V over I equals R. And so I find that the easiest way of remembering it. Some people do this thing with a triangle, but I don't even know where they will go. I assume it means something, but I don't know. I just go V equals IR. Because that's the easiest way for me to remember. Because it's we're all being good to see this. I really don't think this video is going to work out, but I'm kind of thinking that by the time that this channel has got somewhere, there's going to be all these different videos saying the same kind of thing. It's like, this is resistance, but each one is going to be better. So it's kind of going to be cool. So let's just say we have a circuit, and there's 5 volts at the top, so we have a voltage difference of between here. So between these 2 points we have 5 volts here and then 0 volts, and in between there is a zigzag resistor. So we're going to be using the 5 volts up to get across to here. What's the current going to be? Well, we can write this down. This is terrible. So V equals IR. We know what V is, so the voltage difference is 5 volts, right? And we don't know what I is. I, remember, is what current is measured in. Current, what's measured in amps, but the letter that we use to represent it algebraically is I. And R, which is measured in ohms. So what do we get? What was my? We haven't said what that is. Let's just say it's 100 ohms. So there we go, it's 100 ohms. So this is not going to be very useful. 100. So then I can just turn that around. I equals 5 over 100. So I'm actually trying to aim this channel at younger people, but you kind of have to understand a bit of algebra. You just can't get away from it. It's not very hard. So I might do like a basic algebra tutorial, just because I actually really like explaining algebra. But you can't get away from it. So in this case here, the current equals 5 over 100, and that's going to be measured in amps, which is going to be 0.05 amps equals, which is the same thing as 5, hold on, is it? 550, 500. Is it really 5? Oh, okay. That's the same thing as 5 milliamps, 50 milliamps. Huh. So that's 50 milliamps. So that's actually quite a lot of current. Actually, that makes sense. So if it was 100 ohms, and I do have a pile of 100 ohm ones, 100 ohms are a common value. That's not 100 ohms. Then you'd actually have 50 milliamps. So most of the time when you're doing this kind of stuff, you're not going to be working with amps. Everything I'm doing is not going to be working with a level of, like, we're not going to have 1 or 2 amps going through stuff, because 1 or 2 amps can kill you. Which doesn't sound like a lot, but it can, it could if you have it in the right setup. If you have enough voltage. And so everything you kind of be doing, if you're going to be doing like little digital things or making little circuits with LEDs, you're probably going to be dealing with milliamps. If you have lots of LEDs, you will have, like, a fair bit of current. So that's not entirely true, but we're going to have to deal with the fact that we're dealing with very low values here. So we're going to use 50 milliamps, and then it sounds like it's a very high value, which is much nicer. So 50 milliamps is going through this resistor here in this circuit. And that's all that you need to know. So, and it's kind of like makes sense. So if I was to double this to 200, so if the resistance was now 200, I would have I equals, it's about time that I got 200, a new piece of paper. So we can just go with that. I equals 5 over 200, which is going to equal 0.025, which is going to be amps, which is going to be 25 milliamps. So that makes a lot of sense. So that's basically saying if you have the voltage going through here, and you increase the resistance from 100 to 200, you actually halve the amount of current that's going to go through. So this is kind of how I thought about it. Like, one way of thinking about it is you're trying to get little boxes to go through here all the time, and you want them to move along, and the boxes is what current's representing here. One way of thinking, this is not really what's happening, but it's just a way of thinking about it. 5 volts is how much you've got to spend between here and here. So there's a difference that's been created of 5 volts, and you've got to spend it all, and you've got to get people through here, or boxes, and this is kind of like the cost. So if this is 100, then with 5 volts you can afford to send 50 milliamps through. 50. So remember, if we pretend that a milliamp is a box in the imaginary world, I can send 50 little boxes through over this thing. And if I put it up to 200, so if I increase the cost, which is what resistance is, then I can only send 25 boxes through with the amount of money that I've currently got. So hold on. So if I had more money, then I can send more boxes through. Or if it costs less, I could also send more boxes through. So that's kind of one way of thinking about it. Because it's not really what's happening. I did watch a video just recently, which is a big thing at the moment, all about talking, does electricity flow like water and things like this. And so it's really good to read about those. I'm not really 100% confident that I can talk about these sorts of things, so I'm going to try and avoid it. But for now on this channel, we're just going to make things that do stuff. And as long as it works, and we're fine. So we will have to think about some things. I just realized in my Christmas lights there's some really important issues about voltages and stuff that we should talk about at some point. But probably not today. So now we've got to here. But of course, in fact, we're going to put 2 resistors in here. Because, what's this one? This one is, so here's another resistor. I don't know the color, I want it to be more orange because more light. There's a lot of light now. Okay, so this one here, you can't quite see this, but it says it's got, I think it's red. It's a bit hard to tell when you have all these lights on. We're going to test it in a second. So it's got